This next castle is called Schauschenberg. It was a very impressive castle with multiple towers of residential and defensive purposes that give it this castle near Oberschwell its unique silhouette. Schauschenberg is a typical Gärtnerbenberg in which different families of the Schauschenberg family lived together over the course of the centuries. The castle, which probably dates back to the first half of the 12th century, was built on the northern foothills of a mountain chain. Owned by the Archbishop of Magdeburg, it passed in the possession of Emperor Frederick I in 1166, which would make it a pretty old castle, relatively on the Rhine, which was early starting in the first in the 11th century. He raised it to the imperial status and then mortgaged it back to the Archdiocese of Magdeburg in 1216. The castle consists of 3 courtyards arranged at different heights. The central courtyard is the oldest part of the castle and originally had a ditch on its southern side. The square-shaped gate tower also seems to have been built about that time. In the 13th century, there were actually up to 8 branches of the Schauschenberg family, living on the castle grounds. A lot of the other castles were for single-family dwellings, dwellings there with the servants, of course, and the soldiers. The southern upper courtyard with its 2 adjacent circular towers, the Great Hall, the Gothic Chapel, as well as the Bowers, a rectangular residential gate building of 3 stories, are all believed to also date from that time, the 13th century. Around 1320/1350, the castle was further enlarged through paved gateways. That's where they actually used large stones to produce, paving stone gateway on the western slope of the hill, and the lower courtyard and with a mighty curtain wall was erected, which is also unique among the Rhine castles. Schauschenberg Castle was occupied by different armies during the 30 Years' Wars and destroyed in the Palatinate War of Secession in 1689. In 1885, Oakley Rhinelander, a real estate agent from the United States, came over and began rebuilding parts of the ruin, including, among other things, the Bowers, the chapel, the guardhouse. Between 1955 and 53, the northern third of the castle was rebuilt by the Kolping family association and turned into a youth hostel. Further enhancements were made until about 1982. This castle is privately owned, though its courtyards may be visited. There's a restaurant and hotel within the building. It's not too hard to get to, and there is free parking within the castle. If you look closely at this pile of rock, this big rock jutting out into the Rhine, you'll notice there is no castle here. Yeah, okay. So why have I taken a picture of a big rock? Well, there's a little bit of a story here. This is a rock that sticks out into the Rhine and causes the Rhine to take a bit of a turn, a very sharp turn. And on this turn, the sailors used to lose control of their boats and crash aground. So they created a little story or myth about this little area, saying that used to be a siren called Lorelei who used to sit on the rocks and sing to the sailors and attract them to their doom. This is called Lorelei Rock. Well, now we come to my most favorite reconstructed castle of my Rhine tour, and that's Katz Castle. It was built around 1360 by Count Wilhelm von Katzenelnbogen, and he built that castle, which would later, of course, bear his name. Built halfway, and Katz for short. Built halfway up the hill, Katz Castle originally function was to protect St. Gorsham, which belonged to the Katz family. In the 17th and 18th century, though, it also served as an outpost for the Rheinfeld's fortress on the opposite side. thus ensuring its garrison and that of the Rhinefelds could ward off the French thieves of the Palatinate War of Secession in 1689. A little over 100 years later, in 1806, the castle was demolished by Napoleon's orders. Probably no gun salute or some silly thing, or maybe it was painted the wrong color. Between 1896 and 1899, however, almost 100 years later, it was rebuilt on the basis of the original design, but very much in accordance with the contemporary tastes, given, of course, little consideration to any medieval remnant. With the two angle towers, the present building on the Rhine side of the complex faintly resembles a medieval great hall. Originally, the castle had a curtain wall, the 45-meter keep that still exists today, an outer bailey, of which you can still see the pointed angle of its eastern border. A combination of defensive and ring wall enclosed the courtyard and the chapel. On the western side of the courtyard was the Great Hall with its slender court towers. In the 17th century, the castle was further enlarged and fortifications and cannon batteries were added. In the 20th century, modern buildings replaced the vaulted casements. This castle is actually now the Hotel Burg Katz, and you can get there by walking for about 15 minutes. It is privately opened, and it is privately owned and not necessarily open to visitors, of course, unless you're a guest of the hotel.